The audiobook, just because you died don't mean you don't get a second chance. Chapter 1. Now, to actually break down the capabilities of like dying and coming back to life, most people have a variable ways of explanation of that kind of rare historical editorial moment where it could simply be something from a surgeon to the most rare cases of some type of medical meteor shower. Like, I have some all cases of dying and coming back to life, but I noticed somewhere in between dying and coming back to life, you have like this epiphany that is far much greater than what you expected. Like, to say to be greater than zero. But since when does a zero not come in a pair? Some days I would say like, or not even a pair, a zero at its most could be quadruple the zero. And still somewhere in there, even the closest of pairs of coming to zero, a 0 point in your life, it's like multiplying zero at the speed of lightning, the speed of sound. Like, to take willpower and use it as an element of the transformation from point zero on a graph chart frequency to like the rise and climax of a set of like graphed zeros. Because on a graph, zero has 2 points. It has a horizontal zero and has a vertical zero. Both could be used as like an axis of willpower to access like a journey with like just zero, a set of zeros. Not saying that when you die you go into a negative state. It's the complete opposite of a negative state. It just brings you back into like your darkest days and your brightest dreams. That just because you interpret like sight as of a visionary, curated, like if double O is like to double your zeros or quadruple your zeros, like some days the face set of like being a pair or a set of like bright as nothing, bright as it could be as nothing, and dark as it could be as nothing. Like the journey to actually cross over into a realm where nothing at its brightest day or its darkest moment is like the universe. It defines like symmetry of like the symmetry of the vessels in the eyes. It's kind of like being a fish or a motorboat or a tower or a firmament, like a sealed like dark moment or bright moment is on a graph. But what if the graph symbolizes to get a pair of quadruple zeros from like 0 to 0? Some days you shouldn't always be out to like, of course you should enjoy your brightest, darkest, and brightest moments as they are. But some days that's exactly what we're doing, going multiplying from 0 to 0. But like I said, just because you die don't mean you don't get a second chance. It just means that 0 comes back an undefined number. So if a centillion is high as you can count, no, a centillion probably never goes back to being a 0. But some ways, I guess if 0 is the willpower axis of like, let's just say CD versus AB of a ladder. Like 0 could be a ladder. Some days, as we all climb the ladder, it just seems like to hear your most valiant effort is like a play set and a set of variables where we all have our own universe, our own force in the universe. We all have our value. Like to break down the actual cell ferment between life 0 and death 0, they kind of go coherent. They hear each other out till like what was 0 for hearing becomes a 0 for hearing as sight or it's just after you make it through like the set or quadruple or pairs of zeros, you come into a higher like watery intuition. Life goes from being a child to maybe cold to hot, but somewhere in between cold and hot, it balances out like a sealed ferment in air. Like air can be a sealed ferment that when you cross back over from like when I say cross over, like that's all something a pair of zeros do. It's a crossover. 0 could be a ball of God. But once again, the actual counting of God's face set of like 0, once again, just because you're at a 0 moment, even in death, doesn't mean like, yeah, you don't get a second chance. That's all I'm saying. It seems far more closer to being near death, but even near death, it's kind of like a blind spot. Like to tattoo like a blind spot on yourself. It finds like a balance. A Libra scale usually comes as a pair. But some days the pair, they intertwine with intervals of like axis of willpower. To take like a very difficult formula and make it of a sealed like character that most days life is all about eyesight, hearing, just those as micro satisfactionaries. But still, the satisfactionary of getting like from point A to point B, both embrace the face set of your brightest and darkest nothing. It's kind of like a ninja mass I spell. Some days you cast the spell and like to hear a variable at the point even where its orbs is like a variation of like symbols, periods, commas. I can't follow me on this. I can't follow God on this. I get back to him.